Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another edition of the show here on Intuitive Angling. Really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to watch the video. Definitely never take that for granted. And today we're going to be getting into summertime frog fishing. In my opinion, the best 2 months of the year to fish a frog is July and August. And I've got some good tips I want to share with you guys that's definitely going to help you guys catch some good ones on frogs coming up here the next month or two. And real quick before we get started here, just wanted to remind you guys, I talked about this last week, but YouTube has a new deal out on our channels now. They have this thing called View Products. And you'll see when you click on this video, right at the bottom of the screen, it says View Products. And if you click on that, it shows different products that I suggest that you guys check out. And if you just click on one of those products, the channel gets 20 cents every time you click on that. You don't have to buy anything. YouTube pays you 20 cents if somebody clicks on that view product, just whatever product's on there. No obligation. If you just click on it, the channel gets 20 cents. So, man, if 5 of you guys click on it, the channel gets $1. So it's a really good way to help the channel out here. If you just literally it takes you less than 5 seconds to do it. So that'd be much appreciated there. Okay, guys, let's get into this frog deal here a little bit. Frogs, for the most part, they've got a window that they work between, like, when the water temperature first hits 55 degrees and until it drops down below 55 degrees. So you've got a window of probably at least half the year where they'll actually bite a frog. But in my opinion, and the point of this video, I want to talk about the middle of summer frog fishing, because there's a few things about it that is a little bit different than other times of the year. First thing I'm going to do here, guys, I'm going to show you guys my frog box, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the specific frogs, and then I'm going to come back and sort of give you guys some tips and advice on how to fish them. So, okay, guys, here's my frog box, and I'm going to sort of go through this frog box and sort of show you a little bit about the frogs I like for summer, and as far as the different styles and different colors when I use what. Now, my favorite frog to use is this Megabass Big Gabbit. This thing walks really easy. It walks side to side really easy. It's a big profile frog. It's got a good hook in it. I really like this frog most of the time. The only other times that I use different frogs is I think this is like a striped king frog here. It's a little bit smaller profile, so if I want a frog that's a little smaller, I may go to something like that. And then also I've got these things in here, these rats. They work real good sometimes too. I think this is a live target rat, I can't remember. But this thing works really good around shallow milfoil and that type of stuff when you're not moving it much. But one of the things you got to realize here is the size of your frog has a lot to do with the type of vegetation you're fishing, has to do with the size of fish you're fishing, and the mood and the personality of the fish. Most of the time, the times that I'm using a bigger frog, like the Big Gabbit, is if I want to pull a fish from a long distance away. So this frog would be used for like more cover and open water, which I'll talk about here in a second. And then if I'm fishing areas where like there's tight holes, like in the lily pads or in grass, I like a little bit smaller frog because it's a little bit easier for them to target in on it. So that's the deal on that. Now the colors, most of the time, guys, my 2 favorite colors in frogs for the most part is a black or a white. I like the black under some type of a shady condition, not low light, not earlier if it's raining or earlier late in the day, but some type of shady condition, like in the middle of the day where there's some overhanging shade. A black works good, and a white will work good on those, like early in the morning, late in the evening, or on a rainy day. They can see it a little bit better, but I like that black frog more up in the day here. Now, if I'm fishing water that's a little bit on the clean side, I like some type of a shad pattern, like this translucent look right here. That works pretty good when those fish are a little bit more hesitant on it. And then sometimes, especially this time of year, I do like some type of a perch pattern frog. Even though the frog resembles a frog, it also resembles a lot of other stuff too. So a perch pattern is really good this time of year. Now some of the bright ones, a real bright colored frog like this, about the only time that I use this type of frog is in really, really off colored water. Say if I'm fishing water visibility that's less than 12 inches, or like if it's a steady or a hard rain, that type of a thing. Bright frogs will not get a lot of bites unless you're in those type of conditions. So that's a little bit about the frog color and size. Okay guys, let's talk about the important things now, the type of areas you want to fish the frog in, and maybe some things about how to actually fish it and how to work it. To me, when you're talking in terms of summertime frog fishing, the number one element by far is shade. I look for shade all the time, and not all shade is equal in there, because what I'm looking for in the summer is I'm looking for small areas of shade, like areas of shade that maybe is big around as the front deck of your boat. Something like there's some shade that's getting thrown off from an overhanging tree or the corner of a dock, or whatever like that. Not big stretches of shady areas. So one of my favorite things is like to get back in a shallow cove or a shallow flat, and if I see some type of overhanging tree, or if I see maybe a tree line that's throwing off some shade on the bank, those good fish will get in that really shallow water, in that shade. I'm talking like they'll get in 12 inches of water a lot of times, and there's something about a frog that will generate the strike from those super shallow bass. Most of the time, those bass are up there in that really shallow water in the summertime because they're hunting for perch. The perch are spawning all summer long. You hear me talk about spawning perch a lot on the channel in the summertime, because they're such a huge element and such a huge factor in catching shallow summer bass that you just can't deny how important they are. So look for shade at all times. Second on there is, you don't necessarily have to have cover. If you're dealing with a situation where there's a lot of perch spawning, you can just go down the bank and just cover water. So sometimes shade will help, but not necessarily you have to have it all the time. Sometimes you can take that frog, throw it right up on the bank, work it 2 or 3 feet off the bank, and just cover water doing that. Another thing I look for in the summertime frog fishing is docks. Skipping a frog underneath a dock is a deadly technique. It's something you need to practice at, because if you can get it where you can skip, of course it wouldn't be a video if we didn't have some siren or ambulance in the background. God dang, man, let that go by. So anyway, one of the areas that those fish will set up on boat docks, guys, is under the walkways, because again, you have to think in terms of spawning perch, and perch like to be shallow in the summertime, and perch also like to be around shade, because if you can find a walkway on a dock, there's always shade underneath that walkway. The perch will like to hang around there. They feed on the algae that's on the cables. They spawn up there, and being able to skip that frog underneath those walkways is a really good way to catch them. Now, some of you guys have lakes that have shallow grass, like water willows, gator grass, shallow milfoil, shallow hydrilla. That's another good place for a frog. But when you're talking in terms of grass, it's a completely different type of a frog bite than a lake that doesn't have grass. Because when I'm fishing a lake that doesn't have grass and I'm fishing a frog, I'm thinking in terms of covering water and walking that frog and moving that frog a little bit faster. But if you've got areas that have grass in it, then you're looking for the holes in that grass, and you're not working that frog as fast. You're working that frog through the holes, stopping it on the holes, and trying to pull that fish out of the grass to come up in those holes and hit the frog. So it's a completely different type of bite. Most of the lakes across the country don't have grass in it. If you sampled 100 different lakes in the country, your grass is going to be the minority in the case. So most of the time you guys are going to be dealing with fishing a frog around areas that don't have grass. And I think a lot of people, they've always equated frog fishing with grass, and it's only been the past 5 or 10 years where people realize how effective frogs are just going down the bank with them. Because like I said, a lot of people don't realize how shallow those bass get in the summertime. So those are the key things you want to look for. Now, when you're actually working the frog, one of the things that you have to sort of practice at is walking that frog. That frog, you need to think in terms of working that frog exactly how you'd fish a Zara spook or a walking topwater. You want that frog to work side to side, and the way to do that, guys, is to throw your frog on a 7-foot medium heavy action bait casting rod, 30-pound test braided line. I use the Seagar Smackdown 30-pound test. You don't need to go heavier than 30. 30 will give you better action on the frog. I tie a Palomar knot right to the eye of the frog, and keep your rod tip low to the water. You have to get that rhythm going, and by keeping the rod tip low to the water, making short twitches, you can get that frog to rock side to side. Now, if you don't twitch that rod down side to side, that frog's not going to work side to side like that. It's going to scoot through the water forward. So make sure you keep your rod to the down and not to the side. That'll avoid that quite a bit. So that's the main thing, guys. Another piece of advice I'd give you as frog fishing is learn how to skip. Frogs are really easy to skip. They're easier than jigs or anything like that. And that's one of the advantages you need to take of in frogs, because they're weedless and you can get them in places that you can't get other baits. And finally, do not underestimate how shallow the bass will go in the summertime. Here's an example. I was down at Table Rock Lake. I had an on-the-water lesson down there last July. And one of the guys I was with had to go to the bathroom. So we were in sort of about halfway back in this cove, and he got up on the bank and went up in the woods to go to the bathroom, and I had the boat pulled up right on the bank. And there was a little, like a buckbrush that was in maybe 4 to 5 inches of water right next to, about 5 feet away from my boat. And so the base of the buckbrush was only in 5 or 6 inches of water. I looked down there, and probably 3 feet away from that buckbrush, there was a 4-pound bass just cruising around, and I guarantee it wasn't in 12 inches of water, and that water was crystal clear. It was like looking into a bathtub, and you've got this 4-pound bass in 12 inches of water. Water temperature was 85 degrees. Those fish are up there hunting bluegills. That's what they're doing, and they will bite a frog. So that's what you need to keep in mind when doing that. So anyway, guys, just some foundational frog tips. I hope it helps you guys catch a few more. If you guys need some frogs, Baitworks here in Springfield's got a ton of frogs. I'll include the link in the description. Another great way to help support the channel if you use that link. So talk to you guys later. See you.